Sacred SoulJourners, a space where we gather around the fire for storytelling.
This is a journey of spiritual awakening, learning to trust in the universe and aligning to our highest path.
It's through our voices from the perspective of the masculine and the feminine, which is the real life dance between us, where we are going to share stories about our journey, our triggers, our love, all as we walk with the universe, not against it.
Zan and I are two souls having our human experience who are walking through the fire together with our three dogs. And now we're inviting you in to witness. If you've been feeling the pull to awaken,
Then you can finally start to trust.
and then to align to your highest good.
Now, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Hello, and welcome to the campfire for the spiritually curious. This is the Sacred SoulJourners Podcast. I'm your co-host, Zan Kavanaugh, and I'm a wisdom keeper and a steward of consciousness who spent over the last 20 years studying and applying the laws of the universe, learning manifestation, and using it to create my reality, or co-create my reality, I should say. I am an entrepreneur, an artist, transmission artist, and what lights me up is helping people to really discover their own inner authority.
I want to ask you something. I want to ask you about this transmission artist. What is that?
The transmission artist
Yeah,
is
she's talking about transmission artists when I first met Zan, and I come over here to the house, and I went to looking for a 4-speed with a granny low or something underneath the transmission.
transmission.
I couldn't find the 4-speed, so I went to hunting an automatic.
Transmission is I use my wisdom and guidance from the spirit world to open up the right brain and paint. And I let the stencils and the words and the art show me what's in my subconscious, like what's trying to speak to me, which is, again,
And she's pretty awesome at that, by the way. I mean, she sits back, it's unbelievable. Oh, see this whale over here? See, oh, this looks like a unicorn or, whatever it is. But it's pretty neat to watch her. And I'm your other co-host, Troy Hawkner. I'm a former Baptist pastor for 15 years. And after I stepped away from the pulpit, after I met Zan and got to seeking my way, I come to understand that the laws of the universe and Scripture actually go hand in hand. And through that, learned that I am sovereign within myself, and I can have the liberty and the freedom that the Scripture talks about. And that's what the podcast is about. We want to share with you our journey and how you can have that also.
it's beautiful. And we're just going to ask for some grace from you, our audience, because this is our first ever podcast and our origin story. So, we really are doing this podcast for people. They ask you like what your target audience is, and we really are putting out the invitation for people who have outgrown inherited religion, but they've never really lost their hunger for the sacred.
Exactly, and that's what happened to me. I still had my spiritual walk. I knew that the divine was there, and that's what I wanted. That's what we're doing around. Around this campfire. We will share through our stories where we explored our own shadow work, our altar practice. The inner authority within us, and the courage to trust the guidance. And that's what we want for you, to be able to trust the guidance that's already inside you.
And we're all about allowing people to receive. Like for us, it's palm up, right? It's about receiving. And it's our hope that through our authentic voice, that your curiosity comes back to the fire and that your spiritual sovereignty becomes real with us in this process.
Yeah. And you think about the fire concept. Think about yourself. How many times have you sat around a fire and just watched it burn while you share with one another about life, about stories? And, throughout human history, people have gathered around the fires to share their stories, to pass down wisdom that they have come to know, and to remember who they are. And this podcast is our modern day campfire.
Which is so awesome because Troy and I love to build a fire and do ceremony, which we're going to do after this podcast because it is the new moon in a fire
Mm-hmm.
horse year. Fire is a good theme. One of the things that we're learning more in this year is about really setting intention because
Oh, absolutely.
if
Being intentional. Being intentional.
if you do not, what happens, Troy?
If you don't set your intentions, then, you're just allowing anything to come along. And that ain't that, in co-creating my reality, I have to set the intention for that. Uh,
Right.
the smallest things. What about negativity? I can speak negativity in my life by speaking negative, and I have to be intentional without not doing that. No, in other words, being positive, and it is
Right. And it's like, creating your day in the mornings. We want to do that with this podcast. And so since this is the first ever podcast, we're setting the intentions and we're sharing that with you guys because we want to cover 5 core themes. So number 1 is we're going to be talking about spiritual sovereignty,
mm,
which is really learning to trust your own inner guidance, your own inner wisdom and compass.
yeah, absolutely. And number 2 is curiosity over dogma. Asking questions is sacred, not following blindly. Having a mind to think for yourself, meaning just because some religion says it doesn't make it so. In other words, you search the scriptures and you search the way for your own life.
Which is very indicative of this time, right? Like so many people are waking up and learning the truth about all the systems. And so this is a really important one for people who, are seeking another way. Number 3 is the altar practice. This is a passion of ours, and it is
Sure
the
is.
daily connection to the divine. So we'll be referring to that and talking to people about that and sharing more about how you can do an altar practice to support your own connection to the divine.
Right. And number 4 is relationship as a mirror. And this is the revelation in Zan and my journey together is mirroring each other and coming to understand what's inside that we need to work on, need to change, need to be intentional with changing.
Right, because if people don't know what a mirror is, it's because, not so long ago you didn't know what a mirror was. But it's
Well, I knew what the bathroom mirror was.
yeah,
I could go in there
mirror,
and look.
mirror on the wall, who's the
Yeah.
fairest of them all?
Troy Hawk.
But truthfully, it's your triggers, right? So
You're
it's
right.
when
Yep.
somebody makes you mad, it's really not. I mean, they can be making you mad, but if it stings, then
Hmm.
it's a mirror to your own, you know, inner child, your own inner wounding and the discovery. So then, it's about being grateful for that person. But in that moment, that's a lot more difficult than it is to say. And then number 5 is choosing love over fear. The core spiritual path for all of us, above all else, is bringing this planet back into balance of harmony and love. And it's funny because right before I got divorced, which I'd say is in like 2010, I just started writing on my arm, choose love. And I didn't really know why. Like it was kind of a weird thing. I just started like with a Sharpie, just choose love. And I was like, okay. And I have this pattern in my life where I do that, where I do things I don't know why I do them. And then later I'm shown, oh, that's why I did it. And I was just like obsessed. And within a week, I went and had the tattoo, choose love, put on my arm to remind me because you have 2 pathways. It's either love or fear. You can't have both. And so every statement, every thought, every intention stems from one of those 2 things. So
Hmm.
we're going to talk about that as a core theme. And I hope that that's a welcome invitation for anybody that's listening because
Absolutely.
this is going to be a story of Troy and I. And so we're going to do that tonight. We're going to talk about how we met, what path we have gone down, just to share with you because I think it's important for you to understand who we are. You may or may not like us. You might be like, pass, moving on to something else. But you also might be curious, and we welcome you in because we are just like you. We are walking beside you. We are on the path with you. We are all together. So it's important that you know that we're not trying to be something else. We just we want to support you, but we also want to share our journey with you.
Yeah, and hope that you could come to understand, if you don't already, what it means to truly understand the love and light and ease and grace. What it means to be able to know that you can have the peace that passes all understanding. that you can be able to have the joy that just overflows within your life. All too often we hang our hat on circumstances in life, but circumstances can't take those things away. As I've watched Zan in her life, and it don't matter what's going on, she comes in as a ray of sunshine. And what a testament to me, because I knew there was something different with her.
So why don't we start with just briefly, like short thing about where you come from, Troy? Like give us a story. So we're recording this in High Springs, Florida.
Yeah, and I was born and raised in High Springs, Florida, actually, about a mile from Rum Island. Born and raised here, went all the way up through high school up till 10th grade. And I quit school, got married, had 2 kids, and then life happened. And through that, I really felt a call to preach, to pastor in my walk and in doing that, I did a lot of things. I went to college, got my BA in biblical studies, and started my master's degree. Got about 2 semesters away from graduating in divinity. And
How old were you?
I was, I graduated 18 days before my 50th birthday, but I was dual enrolled, so I was working on my master's the whole time too. But through all of that, I was still empty. I was living, but I had no life. I was realizing that there's more to all of this. And, I'm so thankful that the church helped me grasp Scripture the way it did. But there was still something missing. And, Jesus talks about having the liberty, the freedom within ourselves. That was one of the things that I stripped away from myself, was not being able to have the sovereignty within myself, to have that freedom, because it was so suppressed from me, going by rules and regulations and what other people thought and what other people felt. But there was more to it, and I come to understand through my spiritual walk and the laws of the universe and consciousness and being aware.
Well, you weren't on a spiritual walk before. You left the church. You were in Panama. You started trucking business, and
Yeah.
then you came back to High Springs.
Come back to High Springs, and Zan walked by my house one day, and we introduced each other, and then we off and on we'd see each other and
No,
speak.
well, hold on,
Huh?
because I got to tell them about me first, and then
Oh,
we'll do
okay.
the.
All right, go
Man, you get
ahead.
so excited.
Well, I was fixing to tell them all about you.
Right, right. Well, one thing I would just kind of say before I go on is High Springs is a home to 3 beautiful rivers and over 35 natural mineral springs. Part of my story that I'll share is that I have tapped into most of the most gorgeous spiritual places in the United States. So High Springs is right up there with Mount Shasta in its
It's
magic.
magical.
It is
Yep.
the energy, the frequency here is phenomenal. Um, yeah, I actually, came here to build a camp. I was going to start a camp called Camp Kavanaugh, which was designed to bring people to play. It was going to be all about paddleboarding and art and campfires and an adult camp. Like I really want to create an adult camp, and that's still possible. But why did I do that? You'll discover through the storytelling that I'm learning that the camp was my happy place when I was a kid. I grew up in a little town called Palos Verdes, which is in Southern California. It was a peninsula off the coast, so it was a pretty affluent area. Absolutely gorgeous. It was like cliffs over the ocean, and I was raised by hardworking people. I have one brother, went to college at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. I am a wildcat. I went to NYU for like one tiny semester, but then I wanted to be in film and video because I'm a creative. So I started out in Hollywood and I worked there for about 10 years and it just didn't align. The frequency wasn't active for me, as we all know. It was kind of about that time that I started to learn about the universe through some key teachers. And it was like my first test, and I had these 3 scripts, and I had option scripts, and I was going to do movies. I was going to make movies. And I asked the universe, okay, if I'm supposed to stay in Hollywood and I'm supposed to meet my guy and have a family and do it in Hollywood, one of these scripts is going to go and I'm going to make $1 million. But I want to know by the end of the week. And at the end of the week, all 3 scripts fell out of option. And I was like, well, okay, there's my answer. So I left Hollywood, moved back to Orange County. My then boyfriend finally proposed to me, and at 28, I got married. Moved to Orange County and just did a whole bunch of entrepreneurial, creative things. And in 2004, I started a conscious bottled water company called Aqua Mantra Water using theories from Dr. Emoto. Do you know who Dr. Emoto is, Troy?
Who's Dr. Emoto?
So he's a Japanese scientist who discovered that if you write words on water and then froze it, then under a microscope, it would change in crystalline form. If you write the word love, it
Mm-hmm.
looks absolutely beautiful. And if you write the word hate, it like shards and goes sideways. And I learned that from the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? Do you remember
Right.
that film about quantum physics? Oh yeah, because you fell asleep actually. So anyway, I ran Aquamantra for 10 years and I really used Aquamantra at that time to test myself, to learn everything about the universe, really build my business using tools. Like, for example, we entered our water into a bottled water contest, and I put the winning symbol on all 3 bottles of water and put it on my desk like 2 months before we applied. And the day that they announced the winners, I didn't even know. I didn't even get a message, and they sent me a press release saying that we won. So I
Mm.
knew that there was this, relation between really intention and creating your reality.
Right.
And so that company taught me so much. I finally sold it in 2014, but in 2012 got divorced and moved up to San Francisco and began another 10 years of traveling. And this was more like when I had Aquamantra, I was like, people knew me because I was the creator of Aquamantra water. And after that, I just decided I need to really go another route. I need to really like travel for a while with my pit bull named Layla. And it was just me and my little SUV. And I traveled all over the United States and I lived in Santa Cruz and Mount Shasta and Boulder, Colorado, and Bend, Oregon, Lake Tahoe. I really got to explore the United States, and it was such a beautiful 10 years because I really didn't have a lot. And in the process, I was going to build a tech app called Shop Grazie, and that was to just really test abundance. But I didn't really like people in tech, so I pulled out of that and just trying to figure out where I was. And so until the pandemic, and I almost died, and I did get supposed COVID, but it was more of a frequency attack, I believe. Then I had long COVID for a year, and Spirit just kept telling me, like, you got to get out. And it was like the year that Layla died, then my car died, then my lease was up, and it was just like doors were shutting, shutting, shutting. Everybody's had those years where right, something's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And my girlfriend said, "Hey, you should come to Siesta Key. We got a cat. We got a little cottage on the river." And I was like, "Yeah." And it was like middle of winter. It was like we had some crazy storm in Colorado. So I scraped together $140, got a ticket, came and visited her. And within a week she healed me, and it was a learning about my parasympathetic nervous system. A month later, I got a car because I didn't have a car. I drove to Florida and I've been here for 3 years until I moved up to High Springs, and I moved up to High Springs to build this camp. So I'm walking. Oh, and then also while I'm here, so I got this beautiful house, this 4-bedroom house, and I got a yard because I wanted to have a dog. Since Layla, she was my ride or die, and she passed 3 years ago, and I had asked for a dog, and I was getting ready. I was gonna actually go foster a dog, and the day that I was gonna go foster a dog, I ended up going and picking up a bed for the extra room, and I missed the appointment, and I had said the day before, it'd be really great though if I didn't have to go look at a bunch of dogs because that makes me sad because I'm a huge animal person. And little did I know that that day was my dog was going to show up. And so I said, it'd be really cool if a dog just showed up in my backyard, straight up. That's what I said. That afternoon, Gypsy Jane rolled into my neighbor's yard, and I looked at my neighbor and he knew I was trying to get a dog. I'm like, "What am I supposed to do with this dog?" And he's looking at me like, "Well, what? The pound is full. Like, what are you gonna do?" And she was so cute. She was like wiggling her butt and she was like all happy. And so that's how I got my dog. So that's the magic of High Springs. And so I think it was a couple weeks later, I'm walking her, I'm all excited, I'm walking around the neighborhood, and Troy just happened to live 1 block over.
One block. Yeah.
I walked past him and I was just excited to meet people. I was like, "Yay, I'm in the new town." And I was like, "Yay." And he was working on a truck and
A motorcycle.
a motorcycle.
Yeah. She walked by and I thought, boy, I had never seen her before. And I kind of turned around and looked at her again. And Gypsy Jane, the dog, is looking at me. And Zan stopped and we introduced ourselves to each other. Kind of just would speak every time we saw each other. I saw her in Dollar General one day and she invited me over to a
Wait,
bonfire.
hold on a second. Like, this is a big part of this. So, the thing that you're going to come to learn about Troy and I is that we are both divinely guided. You'll hear in our stories that this is not, this was not just like, "Hey, nice to see you." It was like, we met in the Dollar General. And for those people who don't know what that is, it's not even a 7-Eleven. It's like two steps down from a 7-Eleven. Not a big fan. But he was in there, and I was in there with my friend, and she was getting a toothbrush because she forgot her toothbrush, came to visit, and he was behind us, and I was, like, all excited because I knew someone. I had just moved here, I didn't know anybody, and he was holding this, like, bushel of plastic flowers, and so, I looked at him, and I was like, "Hey, Troy," and he was like, "Hey." So he went to hug me, just like, "Hey." And for me, it was this explosion of energy that shot through me that circles planets. It was like I left my body and it was the most I've never had an experience like that in this lifetime. And I'm like looking at him like this is crazy. Like who is this guy? Like what is this all about? And just to give you a little bit about and you'll come to learn about Troy is he's very thoughtful and he's very sweet and he's very intentional in his own way. And he was buying flowers for his grandma who had passed, and he put the flowers on her grave
On Easter Sunday.
on Easter
Yeah.
Sunday. He's
Yeah.
very old school. This is why I fell in love with him because he's he's like a masculine that you don't find very much anymore. So now you may continue.
Now I can continue. But anyway, it's like she said, as we got to meet each other, know each other through meeting, we came around. We was forever having bonfires, and I mean, we're both pyromaniacs, I guess. But she had something about her that was just different, and it wasn't sexual. It wasn't intimate in a guy and girl way. It was just there was a joy about her. She had a joy that it was just so contagious. And as I got to know her, she started sharing her spiritual journey with me. And one night we pulled cards.
Well, what he's talking about is that we have oracle cards. And
Mm-hmm.
so most females know about this. I mean, not most females, but spiritual females and men too. I got guy friends who do it. But you can buy oracle cards. There's like a million decks out there. Alana Fairchild is my favorite. And you shuffle the deck, and basically the deck mirrors your subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can pull one from the top, you can pull one from the inside of it, but you ask a question to the card, and it can be like, what do I need to know for this week? Or, hey, what do I need to know about this person or this experience? And then you ask the deck and then you pull a card, and it's crazy because it's kind of like your own personal psychic reading and the cards are always like super right on, which is like even more nuts. And so, here's our country boy. And I'm like, hey, why don't you pull a card?
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you pull a card? I was like, oh Lord, what in the world? So okay, we pulled the card, and it so spoke to me that night. I'll never forget as I walked home because I just live a block away. I don't even think I was on my motorcycle. I walked home, and as I was walking home, I knew that this was what I was missing, the spirituality that she showed me through the life that she lived and the freedom she had. There was no bondage. There was no dogma, do's and don'ts. It was live your life through divine intervention and allow the divine intervention to guide you, to lead you, while having your free will to do so. And it was through that I realized it was different. And so I started exploring for myself, and it just
And then we had a summer apart. We were just like friends at that point. And then
mm-hmm.
because he lived a block over because he was dating someone else. And then And then he left her, and then I started dating someone. And so then we were just friends. We would just check in with each other. And then at some point, we were both single and we had a fire
Mm-hmm.
and we decided to test it and just see if there was, something there to be had. And there was. And so we were having fun with it. And while we were doing that, he was super curious. And it was so fun for me because it's really fun for me to share. I love sharing. And I feel like I say I'm a wisdom keeper because one of my goals in life was to learn how to manifest by the time I was 50 years old. And I am 55 right now. And so, yeah, I know how to do it. I could, you're
She
going to
loves
learn.
it. She absolutely loves it. It give you a mental picture. You go to a kindergarten class and you see the teacher who loves all her kiddos, and she's just pouring her heart and her life into those little kindergartners. That's the way she was with me about spiritual matters, and she just poured her life into me that way, in a way that it was so authentic. The way she had a love for doing it, and it was contagious. But it also helped me find my way into the freedom. And then I started learning about all, being aware, being aware.
Well, and we started with the altar. So then he asked me, he's like, "How do you build an altar?" Which is, of course, like so great that he was asking me about that. And so we built an altar out
Mm-hmm.
of crystals, and you know, we're eventually going to do a series teaching people about that. But it was really fun to watch him. It's a guy like wanting to build an altar. It's so great. And I said to him, "Look, if you find feathers on the ground, those are messengers from the spirit world." And so, if you find any hawk feathers or owl feathers, you're not really supposed to, but if you happen to on your journey, or any kind of feather for that matter,
Mm-hmm.
it's really great to put on the altar. And
Yeah, I built me an altar, put it together, and where I was living, I had it set up there. And I was reminded of, all the altars in Scripture, and I wondered why we quit using them. The local church has an altar down there that people go to and pray, but that's the way I see my altar. It's a place where I can go to invite the gods of the universe, the divine, to come in and spend time with me. It's just, and I'm reminded of David in Psalms. All throughout Psalms, you see where David's personal relationship with the Lord and the divine was uh, within his spent time praying. He spent time dancing. He spent time singing with the Lord, and that's what the altar is to me. It's a place for me just to meditate, to focus on who He is in my life, and through that is where I've got a spirit guide. It's I call him Owl because it is an owl. He comes to me in my dreams, and
but
it,
you tell him how you met the owl. Like you,
well, I went out to my semi one day and there was about a half grown owl hit in the grill of my truck. And I hated that. Man, I hated it. And that owl gave his life for me. And it was right after that owl came to me in my dream and just speaks confirmation into my life. He don't give me stuff that I don't know. He's not there to give me lottery ticket numbers for tomorrow. But he comes to me, speaking to me, encouraging me with the intuition that's in me of what I already know I should be doing. And it's just great confirmation.
and we're grateful for the owl.
Oh, yeah, so grateful. I even ask him questions sometimes, and I'll lay it on my altar, and he comes to me and to talk to me about the situation.
So we like to call we like to say that in our circles is, he's basically channeling, but there's actually a term for it, right? It's called Shravana,
Hmm.
which is like somebody who's specifically in their dreams, and also Archangel Raphael comes to you.
Yep, Archangel Raphael, Archangel Michael.
Now,
Uh,
this didn't all happen without a catalyst. So, we're just going to briefly share with you because it's important that we share how deep into this we are, that we're not just two people head talking. We have really done some deep work. And so, when Troy and I met, I was a big drinker and I definitely used my wine to have a good time. And Troy did too. And his was Crown. And so first month or so of our
Blackberry
relationship
Crown.
was a good time. But it also started to, because we now know that we are karmically tied. You could call us twin flames or soulmates, but we definitely have karma. And he and I came together to help heal each other. And through one of those nights, some deep inner child stuff came up. And in that process, it was definitely a dark night of the soul night. And then I had to go on a trip to Vegas, and I went on a trip to Vegas, and I was going to break up with him because it was really not a good night for either of us. And the whole time I just kept thinking like, why? Why did this happen? Because I just really felt a strong connection to him. And my girlfriend said to me, "Well, you can't just like end it without concluding it. Like you got to close the loop," because she knew it was a powerful connection. My friend Michelle. And so I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to close this loop." And so I came home and really I was just going to talk some shit to you, and I was going to smack you side the head and be like, "What is wrong with you? I mean, look at me." And
Look at you, huh?
and so we met in a coffee shop next to a church because it was raining. We were going to meet outside. And when I was with him, I decided to clear some entities from him because I had just got back from Vegas and I had cleared 18 entities from me. And if anybody is listening, it's not like an exorcism, but sometimes when you drink, when you smoke pot, when you get fearful, like say you're in an accident, you jump out of your body, other beings will come in and either guide you or try to take you down, right? So if you ever feel like super irritable, sometimes that's not just you. Those are other beings, and you can have, some people have had even up to 50. And so I had cleared like 18, and I thought, well, shit, I'm gonna just check and see, and he had 8. And so I decided to run some clearing on him in the coffee shop because I wanted to have the most authentic conversation as I said goodbye to this person that I really cared deeply about. And on the 5th one, Troy was like, "Oh my God, something's wrong. Something's wrong." So I called in Archangel Michael, and you said that you felt,
Mhm. Felt my guts being ripped out.
yeah.
In other words, that was pretty strong.
And you said, "Is there a hand on my back?"
Yeah, I thought Zan put her hand on my back, but it was Archangel Michael holding me as he was pulling the other one out.
And it was really like both of us were like, "Whoa."
Yeah,
That was like, what?
whoa.
I mean,
I mean, we're in the middle of a coffee shop, and I'm just short of wailing. I mean, bawling my eyes out through just the spiritualness of it, but also the pain that I was going through because he didn't want to come out. And then,
Yeah. And so we decided to, because that was such a profound experience, we decided that, we should just keep talking, and we both decided to stop drinking at that point
mm-hmm,
because it just felt safer because entities pop in when you're drinking. And that kind of like became kind of a story where we committed and said, "All right, let's do this. Let's do this
right.
work together." And it was interesting for me because I like to check the energy. And I had checked the energy before this experience, and it was telling me that Troy and I would not be together at my birthday. My birthday was in February, and I was confused because I really liked this guy and I was really into him, but obviously that one pathway was not going to work. But as soon as we did this work, the energy shifted, and it was like we had jumped timelines. We had really committed to, helping each other. And so through that, we've had an extensive amount of experiences. And through that, Troy has been in boot camp for spirituality.
Mm.
And I've been giving him books, and he's been learning about his inner child. And
Yeah, that was one of the things that's blown me away is, within the church, you never hear about inner child, never hear about past trauma and dealing with it to the point of being able to be healed from it. It's if you held on to the past after you've been forgiven or after you've been saved, then you're not trusting. That's what I heard the most within the church. But you gotta go back. I mean, the inner child trauma that I went through, my biggest one was abandonment. In other words, my dad left me whenever he found out mom was pregnant with me. So I never had a father. He abandoned me. And then my mom left me in 10th grade. 10th grade, I was on my own. A very abusive stepfather, physically, emotionally, verbally, just
and so the inner child
the inner child was
is
just
is
traumatized by all of that, and I carried it with me all the way up till what just a month ago. truly is I was working on it the whole time, but there's so much to learn, and that's why we come to you in this podcast to help you be able to spiritually find your way on your journey. And while you're on your journey, you're going to run into these things. You're going to have somebody that will mirror that trigger that's inside you that causes you not to be who you can be. And then when that trigger comes about, you got to figure out how to deal with that trigger and to change the way that you've always dealt with it your whole life, whether the triggers, from whatever that trauma caused that trigger. And that was one of the biggest things with me was learning how to, everybody says, oh, when it gets hard, you got to just keep taking the next step. Okay. I was taking the next step thinking, okay, I just got to be in the hardness here. But no, it just clicked with me one night on how to, in other words, in the hard time, I leaned in and I just chose to do the right thing instead of doing what I used to do. And within minutes, it laughter came about me.
It's beautiful to watch. It's been to be in relationship with. Let me describe Troy to you. Like he is tough as tough could be. This guy cuts his hand like every day, wrenching on his semi. Right now, he is a dump truck driver with his own business, and but he can fix things and build things. And I mean, we got some rough and tumble here, and which is of course what attracted me to him because I need a strong, sexy,
Mm,
masculine man. But also I want a man who understands the spiritual, who can co-create in the
right.
world. And so to me this was a winning combination until I met his inner child. And I was
She even gave him
definitely
a name.
thinking a couple times about this. But what was interesting is watching him through it. It really brought up a lot of my own stuff, and we'll share that journey, in more detail later. He's more learning about frequency and vibration and how that plays a role. So, if you're going to any kind of organized religion and you don't know what we're talking about, we just
Hmm.
invite you to stay tuned because I'm going to tell you that the new earth and where we're going, these are the tools. Even for those of us that have been studying this for 20 years, they're moving rapidly and changing. And so things that even worked for us 10 years ago to manifest is not. It's really about clearing out that inner closet. It's super important that inside you are whole, you're seen, you're clear, you love yourself, you're not attached to the illusion of the trauma that you were raised with.
Right.
And, another thing is that your trauma might not even come from this lifetime. It might come from previous. I mean, that's a thing. It's like you don't understand all that's involved. And through our experience, mine having done it for over 20 years and Troy just in it now, we just really hope to share through these spiritually turbulent times how we're doing with it and how to walk beside you. And we're going to open this up to, a membership and to help really kind of answer questions and because there's a lot of spiritual people out there. There's a lot of and I'll be referencing those people along the path. I mean, there's a million spiritual books, but we're not those people. We're the handout to you that says, let's just show you a little bit different way. Let's just open your mind a little bit differently because there are ways for you to navigate super easy. And the big thing that I want to also imprint is nature, the conversation with nature, and not
Absolutely.
just the external is not something that just happens. Or when I talk about your inner authority, it's like your inner is what dictates the external. And you might shake your head and think that I'm too woo woo and crazy. Am I?
No, not at all.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we have stories about just going for nature walks and then, a rat snake crosses our path and
Hmm.
then we look it up in chat and we're like, what is that? What does that mean? And it's talking about, well, that snake just went in front of Troy and he's finishing his transformation and like really getting the reflection. The natives did moon ceremonies every cycle because the reason they actually did sweat lodges, from what I understand, is that, women have moon cycles. So we were naturally purged, right? So we
Hmm.
go through this cycle every month. Well, men didn't get to do that. So they created the sweat lodge. So for many years, women weren't even allowed in the sweat lodge.
Right.
And so that was then eventually they let the women in, and I mean, the sweat lodge is amazing because it is definitely a purging, but it's really important to take stock for yourself
Mm.
in how you're operating in this reality, and that's where the altar can come in because it's a place for you to take your affirmations. It's a place for you to take your wishes and put up pictures and things to remind you of what you're going after or what you wanna pray for. If you're not going to church, it's really right now is a spiritual warfare out there.
Mhm.
And the more you connect to yourself as the beautiful and magnificent co-creator you are, we can actually light up an entire city with the energy in our bodies. And the biggest lie is the control that they put over us saying that we can't.
Right.
And that invitation is what's teaching us how powerful it is.
Yeah, one of the things with nature is being intentional. There's things within our lives we got to let go. And when we let it go, there's things within our life that we need to fill that space. And I love going to a flowing creek and to catch it going downstream. And I'll face downstream when I let it go, intentionally putting in the creek what I let go. And then I'll turn around and face the opposite direction with the creek coming to me as it flows towards me.
And allow your intentions to
And
fill you up.
allow the intentions to fill me up. I mean, there's so many things that you can do with nature that I never thought about nature that way before. You know, He created the earth for us to be able to enjoy, and He speaks to us in so many ways through nature if we'll just listen. Animals crossing my path or coming in before me, and I come to find out, the spiritual meaning of that animal and what it means.
And it always relates, just
It's
like the
it all
oracle
Yeah,
cards
that's what's funny, is it always relates with where I am in my life.
and the journey, which is so just to slowly wrap up this
Mhm,
fire ceremony. So when we were coming up with, we thought it would be really fun to share our experiences. And so we slowly developed the brand that we're calling the Sacred Souljourner. And because a soul sojourner is a traveler passing through unfamiliar land in search of a place to belong. And so we thought, well, how great for like souljourners or someone who's traveling the inner landscape of life, seeking truth, connection, and guidance from the divine within and the world around them.
mhm, exactly.
And so, do you want to tell everybody what we're going to be doing, that we're actually going to be real
Oh, yeah,
sojourners?
we are, in the process. I think we're within a couple of months, so we're gonna be sojourners in traveling. And unbelievable. I mean, we're going to go to places like Mount Shasta, and we're just going to travel around the whole United States and go up the West Coast, go across the top, go into Canada, come back down the East Coast. But
And we're looking for a place to live
looking for a place to live to find out, where we could be best used at, uh,
and of service.
of service, in service, and that's kind of what the journey is about. But it's also about just going with the flow, not having a destination, but allowing the universe to just work it out for us and to know it when we see it. And yeah,
And
it's going to be an awesome trip.
that's what, and we didn't actually know that this is what we were going to do when we came up with this podcast, but we also want to open and extend the invitation to meet everyone.
Hmm.
I have actually done similar journeys solo with my dog. And, part of traveling, the best part, right? Everybody knows is meeting people, it's meeting and learning the stories. And so on this journey, we will have a website, which will be the Sacred Souljourner. We're going to look for ways to have meetups or potlucks and to really connect with people across the nation
Hmm.
to hear stories about what they're going through and around the campfire. So we're actually going to do podcasts around real campfires together because the fire is what transmutes the energy, right? We always like to put things in the fire to let go. Or in the case of the new moon, which is tonight,
Hmm.
which is calling in the invitation of what you want to create in the next moon cycle, the next 30 days. Is there anything else that you want to add before we put something into the fire?
Well, I just want to as we are sojourners, each one seeking our soul journey. My prayer is this: that you have a hunger for knowing the truth, and as in you have that hunger, there's nothing greater than to experience the love and light with the freedom that you can have within your inner self. In doing so, it ain't easy, but it's well worth it. It's well worth it.
It is. There's a lot more space in your body when you start doing the work, and it's also a connection to your own divinity. So you, instead of having to like get a download or think about what you want to do, you just have a knowing. You just become one with your own field. So one thing that we want to share is that in every podcast, it will be a fire. We will use the owl as a signifier for truth. So when we're talking and we hear a truth, the owl will pipe off, and we will end all of our podcasts with what we want to give to the fire, because we want to use the fire as a catalyst for strength. And it's going to be an invitation to you all that wherever you're listening today, just take a moment and ask yourself that what are you ready to give to the fire? And we'll be talking, through themes of awakening and shadow work and inner child. And we're going to have guests, podcast guests. I have a lot of friends. Troy has a lot of friends. And it'll be great conversation to just kind of see on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we go, baby,
What do I bring to the fire tonight? I'm bringing an intention to pay attention, have the awareness of the negativity within me that causes the negative to come about. You speak into your life, and to be conscious and be intentional with what I speak. Instead of saying it negative, I'm going to come across with a positive. Just watch how it changes.
that's beautiful.
Well, what about you? What are you bringing to the fire tonight?
I'm going to say it, and I'm really hoping that I can follow through, but I'd like to have a pause. I feel like I can be very reactive when things around me are stressful,
Reactive.
and I meet the stress with a loud voice.
Absolutely.
It's not ladylike. And then, I'm referring to my dog. She's got ridiculous amounts of energy, and she's just like, I have nothing to do, and I just want to bug you, and I just want you to play with me, and like, when are we going to go play? And here's a ball, and what are we going to do? And by the way, also part of the podcast is we have 3 dogs.
3 dogs.
We have a Cur Catahoula hound mix,
Gypsy Jane.
Gypsy Jane, and we have Junior.
So June.
He's like seriously the cutest dog ever. He's like a little Ewok. He's got little big ears, and he's like a corgi mix.
Yeah, corgi mix.
And then we have our special child, B,
Little Kippy.
who is a long-haired dachshund.
And he is special.
He beats to his own drum. And so,
Mind
having
of his
3
own.
of them, they have like no life. They're just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? And it's just like, as somebody who's an energetic empath, I feel all of that. And it's like, it's intense. So anything adding to that can light me up. And so my intention for the fire for this new moon is just take a deep breath before I respond, which will
Nice.
ground me and will keep me present in the moment, because responding versus reacting is something that we will talk about on
Well, yeah.
one of the next podcasts, and that's a toughie.
Yeah, I can tell you. I know all about it. It's rough. That reaction. You learn how to duck around here.
Okay.
I'm just being funny.
Oh.
She's really not that bad. Not
Okay.
that bad.
Okay. Well, and on that note, we're going to leave you with love and light.
Peace and grace.
And may your inner fire guide the way.
Good night.
Thank you for listening.